Hey, Grandpa, you lose your walker again? The room erupts in laughter. Detective Harold Quinn doesn't turn around. He just keeps pouring burnt station coffee into the same chipped mug he's used for 17 straight years. Behind him, Officer Blake Thompson whistles loudly. Careful, guys. Don't make him spill. Last time he got startled, his hip nearly filed a workers' comp claim. More laughter. Harold sets the pot down, slow and deliberate. His hands don't shake, but everyone's waiting for them to. They watch him the same way the department watches old computers, with impatience, irritation, and the constant question of why he still exists at all. Heard the captain's pushing your retirement papers through, Blake smirks, leaning against a desk. 62, man. Time to let the new blood take over. New blood. Harold glances around the squad room. Half of them still look like rookies to him. Fresh haircuts, sharp uniforms, enthusiasm uncrushed by paperwork or politics. They joke about his age, but it isn't age that has worn him down. It's everything he's seen, everything he's had to swallow. He sips his coffee. No one notices the way he memorizes faces, the way other people breathe. It's automatic. A reflex honed from 40 years of reading suspects, masks, lies, and the small trembling truths that people try to hide in their eyes. Detective Mara Velez, one of the few who treats him with actual respect, shoots him a warning glance from across the room. Ignore them, please. She mouths it silently. He nods once, though he doesn't need the reminder. He's been ignoring worse men his entire career. But today is different. Today, the teasing carries an edge he has learned to recognize, the kind that comes right before someone tries to shove you out the door. Don't worry, Quinn. We'll visit you at the retirement home, bring you crosswords, Jell-O in different flavors, maybe even sign your casts when you fall in the shower. Harold finally turns his head. Just a fraction. Just enough. You done? He asks. His voice is low, calm, too calm. And just like that, the room quiets. Because even the loudest bullies know when they've poked a sleeping bear. But before Blake can spit out another insult, the squad room doors slam open. Captain Rourke pushes inside, red-faced and sweating, holding a manila folder thick enough to choke a wood chipper. Everyone, listen up, he barks. Blake straightens immediately. The room snaps to attention. Harold doesn't move, but his spine goes rigid. Rourke only storms in like this when the situation is bad. Very bad. He throws the folder on a table so hard papers scatter everywhere. Photos slide across desks. A missing girl's face stares up from the floor, smiling, small, brown-eyed, maybe 11 years old. Her name? Lily Armitage. The room murmurs. Missing for 36 hours. Parents are frantic. Media already circling like vultures. If we don't get a lead fast, we're dead in the water. Blake snatches a photo. This the mayor's niece? Grandniece, but close enough. That changes everything. A missing child is already the worst call a department can get. A missing child with political connections, that's dynamite waiting for a spark. Rourke drops more papers, maps, phone logs, witness statements. Patrol canvassed the block twice. Canine came up empty. Amber Alert hasn't produced a single viable tip. Whoever took her planned it. Blake clears his throat. Sir, we can take lead. Thompson, shut up, Rourke snaps. You had lead on the Jefferson case and nearly arrested the wrong guy on live television. Snickers ripple across the room again, but this time, at Blake. Blake's jaw tenses. His face reddens. Harold hides a smirk behind his mug. Rourke rubs a hand over his face. I need someone experienced, someone patient, someone who can stay calm under pressure. The room stills. Everyone knows exactly what name hangs in the air unspoken. Everyone also knows Rourke doesn't want to say it. Harold feels Mara's eyes on him again. Hopeful, worried, pleading. But Rourke doesn't look at Harold. Not yet. Instead, he looks at the wall, the ceiling, the floor, anywhere else. Then, with the reluctance of a man swallowing broken glass, he says, "Quinn." The entire room freezes. Blake sputters loudly, "You're giving the case to him?" Harold keeps his expression blank, but inside, a flame flickers. Rourke snaps, "Shut your mouth, Thompson! Quinn solved more cases than you've had birthdays!" Blake starts to protest, but Rourke's glare shuts him up. A heavy silence settles. Rourke lifts the folder and walks it over to Harold. He places it in front of him like a peace offering or a time bomb. "Don't make me regret this," he mutters. Harold meets his eyes. "I won't." Rourke nods and steps away, relieved and terrified at once. But as Harold starts gathering the scattered photos, Blake leans in close, voice low and venomous. "If you screw this up, old man," he whispers, "you'll be out before the weekend." Harold doesn't even blink. "If I screw this up," he replies calmly, "it won't be me the mayor looks at." Blake's smirk falters. Because that's the thing about age. Experience isn't just years on a calendar. It's knowing exactly where people's weak spots are. Harold takes one last look at the girl photo. Lily Armitage. 11, missing for 36 hours. Last seen wearing a purple hoodie with unicorns. Brown hair in a braid. Almond-shaped eyes. A gold bracelet on her right wrist. A bracelet her mother said she never took off. He flips to the next page. School attendance records. Then, neighborhood map. He scans the route Lily walked each day. His eyes narrow at a detail others missed. A pattern. A tiny one. Barely visible. But enough. He looks up. "Where were the officers posted during the canvassing?" Blake snorts. "Why, gonna take a guess based on your old detective instincts?" But Mara answers, 2 blocks south, 1 to the west, 1 at the intersection. Harold taps the map. "Then they missed the drainage culvert behind the school." Blake laughs. "Why the hell would she be there? That area is abandoned." Harold lifts an eyebrow. "Which would make it attractive to someone who doesn't want to be seen." Rourke frowns. "Are you suggesting—" "Yes," Harold says, "that someone planned this, and they've been watching her." The room goes dead still. "Quinn," Rourke says slowly, "are you saying this could be organized?" Harold nods. "Or worse. Internal." Blake's face drains of color. "Internal? You think one of us—" "I think," Harold interrupts, "that Lily Armitage didn't vanish. She was delivered." A chill sweeps the room. Blake shifts uncomfortably. Mara's face tightens. Rourke rubs his temples, realizing the implications. Harold pushes away from the counter and stands. His knees ache. His back protests. His age feels heavier than usual, but his mind, sharper than anyone else in the room. He grabs his coat, tucks the folder under his arm, and heads for the door. As he passes Blake, he stops for one heartbeat. "You're right about one thing," Harold murmurs. "I am old." Then he opens the door. "But that just means I've been watching this department longer than you've been alive." He steps out. "And I know exactly where it rots." The door shuts behind him, leaving a stunned silence. The old cop everyone mocked just walked out with the biggest case of the year. And for the first time in decades, Harold Quinn feels the fire of the hunt burning in his chest again. What he doesn't know yet, what no one knows, is that by following the trail to find Lily Armitage, Harold Quinn is about to tear open a secret so deeply buried inside his own department that solving the case might destroy everything, everyone around him.
The city looked different at dusk, colder, sharper, like the shadows themselves were watching. Detective Harold Quinn drove slowly, his old Crown Vic rattling over every pothole the younger officers liked to pretend didn't exist. The case file sat open on the passenger seat, pages fluttering each time the air vents sputtered. Most cops ignored the places where the sidewalks cracked and the streetlights flickered. Harold didn't. He knew that the places society overlooked were the same places predators used as hunting grounds. He turned onto the road behind Brookside Elementary, the school Lily Armitage attended. It was quiet now. Too quiet. Kids' laughter during the day, echoing silence at night. He stepped out of the car, joints protesting the cold. His breath fogged the air as he crossed toward the chain-link fence and the battered drainage culvert behind it. The culvert was half hidden by overgrown weeds, just large enough for a child to enter if coaxed, but big enough for an adult to drag a struggling body into. Most officers hadn't even given it a second look. Harold crouched down, flashlight beam sweeping the cement. Footprints. Small. Light. A few days old. A child's sneaker tread just barely pressed into the damp dirt. He scanned further. A second set. Larger. Heavier. Someone had been here. He felt a pulse of adrenaline, quiet but distinct, the old instinct waking up again. His radio crackled. "Detective Quinn, this is Velez. You copy?" He pressed the button. "Go, Velez." "Captain wants an update." "Tell him I'm working." "He wants details." Harold exhaled, steady and annoyed. "Tell him I'll give details when I have something worth saying." Velez chuckled softly. "Copy that." He turned off the radio. He moved closer to the culvert entrance, noticing a scrap of fabric snagged on a broken metal edge. Purple. Torn. A piece of Lily's hoodie. He sealed it in an evidence bag with steady, precise movements. His hands were experienced, not old. Someone had taken her through here. But where? He climbed deeper into the culvert, the cement walls cold against his fingertips. It smelled faintly of damp leaves, old water, and one more smell, subtle but unmistakable. Gasoline. Fresh. Recently tracked in. Whoever used this passage had driven something close by. A van, maybe. A truck. He exited the other end, brushing dirt from his coat. A narrow service road stretched behind the school, abandoned, rarely patrolled, hidden from the main street by a wall of dense brush. Perfect for a snatch. He followed the tire marks pressed into the mud. They led to a patch of asphalt so darkened by oil it looked like it had been burned. Harold crouched again. His flashlight swept across something glinting in the dirt. Metal. He plucked it out with a gloved hand. A small bracelet charm, unicorn-shaped, gold. His pulse kicked hard. Lily's. There was no way this wasn't connected. Someone had taken her through here, and someone had dropped this. Accident or struggle? He studied the scratches on the charm. Jagged. Fresh. She fought. She fought hard. He stood, jaw tightening. He'd solved dozens of missing person cases. He knew what it meant when a child fought. He also knew what it meant when a child didn't. Lily was alive. He could feel it, an instinct sharpened through decades of cases. He pocketed the evidence bag and walked back toward his car, stopping only when headlights flickered behind him. A patrol vehicle rolled up. Blake Thompson stepped out. "Captain asked me to check on your progress," Blake said, arms crossed. "See if you need help." Harold raised an eyebrow. "Help? From you?" Blake bristled. "Standard protocol." "No," Harold said simply. "It's not." Blake took a step closer. "I'm not letting you hog all the credit, old man." "Credit?" Harold's voice hardened. "A girl is missing. This isn't a competition." Blake smirked. "Everything's a competition in this department." Harold stared at him for a long moment. Then he turned and opened his car door. "Go back to the station, Thompson. This isn't your scene." Blake's face twisted. "Captain won't like you shutting me out. He'll like you contaminating a crime scene even less." For a moment, Blake looked ready to swing. The tension sizzled in the cold air. But Harold wasn't intimidated. Not by Blake, not by anyone. He had buried better men. Blake spat on the ground. "Don't get too excited. When this case blows up, and it will, the captain won't be able to protect you." Harold paused. "The captain isn't who I'm worried about. It's whoever took Lily. They're smart, organized, careful." He got in his car and closed the door. He drove off, leaving Blake fuming in the dark. Back at the station, Captain Rourke paced in his office like a man trapped inside a shrinking cage. When Harold entered, Rourke didn't look pleased. "Why'd you send Thompson away?" Rourke snapped. "Because he's incompetent," Harold replied calmly, dropping the evidence bags onto the captain's desk. Rourke paused. "What's this?" Proof she was taken through the drainage culvert. Tire tracks, shirt fragment, bracelet charm. His eyes widened. "You found all this in 1 hour?" 43 minutes, Harold corrected. Rourke stared at him, jaw tight. Harold leaned forward. "You picked me for a reason, Captain. I picked you because I didn't have a choice." "Same thing." Rourke scowled, but he didn't deny it. He opened the bracelet evidence bag. "This is big. This changes everything." Harold nodded once. "It also means someone didn't want us to find it." Rourke's brows furrowed. "Meaning?" "Meaning whoever took her is confident. Too confident." Rourke sat back, rubbing his temples. "Quinn, we need to be careful. With this kind of case, politics get involved. People get nervous." Harold studied him. Rourke wasn't talking about the mayor or the press. He was talking about the department. "Hear me out," Harold said. "Lily didn't resist. She climbed into the vehicle willingly. And children don't do that with strangers. She recognized the person or the uniform." Rourke stiffened. "A uniform? Possibly." Rourke's face drained of color. "Harold, do not say what I think you're about to say." Harold lowered his voice. "There's a chance, small but real, that someone with authority was involved." Rourke stood up abruptly, panic flickering across his features. "If this leaks, the department will burn." Harold nodded. "Which is why we don't leak anything. Not yet. Not until we know exactly who we're dealing with." Rourke sank into his chair, looking more exhausted than angry. "You understand the risk here, Quinn." "I understand the stakes. A girl's life." He gathered the papers and evidence bags, tucking them neatly into the folder. "What's your next move?" Harold paused at the doorway. "Simple," he said. "I talked to the Armitage family." "Why them first?" Harold looked back over his shoulder. "Because I want to know who in their inner circle Lily trusted enough to follow. And I want to know who had access to a badge." He walked out of the office. A storm was building, Harold could feel it. In 40 years of detective work, only a handful of cases had this smell. A missing child, a controlled abduction, questionable police involvement, political pressure, cover-ups beginning to stir. This wasn't just another case. This was rot. Deep institutional rot. And Harold Quinn was about to dig until he hit the bone. What he didn't realize yet, what no one realized, was that this case didn't just involve one corrupt officer. It involved a chain, a network. And the first link was already watching him from the shadows of the station hallway, waiting for him to make the wrong move.
The Armitage house sat on a quiet, manicured street, lined with identical mailboxes and evenly spaced birch trees. The kind of place that advertised safety while quietly drowning in secrets. Harold parked along the curb, taking a moment before stepping out. His joints popped as he straightened, but he ignored the ache. He'd lived with worse. A porch light flicked on as he approached. Lily's mother, Rebecca Armitage, opened the door before he could knock. She was pale and rigid, like someone holding herself together with sheer will. "Detective Quinn?" she asked, though she already knew. When you were desperate, you recognized help as quickly as danger. "Yes, ma'am. I appreciate you speaking with me." She didn't move aside immediately. Instead, she looked past him, scanning the street, as though expecting someone else, someone younger, someone the department trusted more. Then she stepped back, letting him in. The house smelled faintly of lavender and stale fear. Toys were scattered across the living room floor, frozen reminders of a life that had paused the moment Lily vanished. Harold removed his hat, holding it respectfully. "Is your husband home?" Rebecca hesitated. "He's on his way. A work meeting ran late." Or he didn't want to talk to police. People always revealed themselves in absences. He spoke gently. "I won't take too much of your time, but I'd like to ask some questions while everything is still fresh." She nodded stiffly. "Anything, please. Just ask." Harold began simply, asking about Lily's favorite places, friends, routines. Rebecca answered automatically at first, details she'd repeated to officers and reporters all day. But then Harold shifted. "Did Lily trust police officers?" "Yes, I suppose so. She's never had a reason not to." "Did she know any officers personally?" Harold pressed. Her hands twisted in her sleeves. She hesitated. Just a second too long. "Mrs. Armitage," Harold said softly, "you won't help her by protecting anyone." She shut her eyes, tears gathering. "There's someone, but I don't want to assume." "Tell me." "A friend of my husband's, a sergeant. He's been over for dinner a few times. Lily liked him. He was good with her." Harold's stomach sank. "Name?" "Sergeant Colin Dwyer." Harold kept his expression neutral, but inside something clicked. Dwyer. Ambitious, charming, connected, and suspiciously clean for a man who'd been in narcotics for 10 years. Too clean. He'd seen Dwyer around the station, laughing with the young cops, laughing at Harold. "Do you know if Sergeant Dwyer was ever alone with Lily?" "A few times, but only briefly. He would babysit while Daniel and I were in the other room. Nothing strange." Nothing strange is how these cases always began. Before Harold could probe deeper, the front door opened. Daniel Armitage stepped in, eyes red-shot, tie loosened. His expression hardened instantly when he saw Harold. "I thought the department assigned someone else, someone current." "You got me." "We requested a lead detective who wasn't older than the house," Harold finished for him, deadpan. Daniel reddened but didn't deny it. Rebecca shot his husband a warning look. "Daniel, he found things. He's helping." Daniel ignored her. "Detective, I'm grateful you're trying, but I want results, not attitude." Harold stepped forward, leveling his gaze with Daniel's. "I'll get you results, but I need answers, not attitude." Daniel opened his mouth, then closed it again. Harold continued. "Your wife mentioned Sergeant Dwyer. Tell me about him." A flash, barely there but unmistakable, passed across Daniel's face. Guilt? Fear? Complicity? "He's a friend," he said too quickly. "A good man. He wouldn't hurt anyone." "Good men still get investigated." "Where was he the day Lily vanished?" I don't know." "Find out," Harold ordered quietly. "Right now." Daniel bristled. "You can't speak to me like that." "I just did." Rebecca stepped between them. "Daniel, please, just call him." Daniel hesitated, then reluctantly pulled out his phone and stepped into the hallway. Harold watched him go, reading every inch of the man's posture. Daniel was hiding something. Whether it involved Dwyer remained to be seen. Rebecca sank onto the couch. "Detective," she voice wavered, "do you really think Lily knew who took her?" Harold sat across from her. "Yes, and that's good." "Good?" she repeated, bewildered. "It means she wasn't grabbed violently. It means she wasn't running. It means she trusted whoever approached her." She covered her mouth, tears spilling. "Why is that good?" "Because she's still alive," Harold said firmly. "If someone wanted to hurt her, they wouldn't have needed her trust." The words steadied her like a lifeline. Daniel returned moments later, pale. "He's not answering," he muttered. "Did he usually answer your calls?" Daniel swallowed. "Yes." That was enough for Harold. "I'll need addresses for both of you. Anywhere you spend time. Anyone Lily has interacted with in the past 3 months." Daniel stiffened. "We've already told the department." "I'm not the department," Harold said, picking up his hat. "I'm the one who's going to find your daughter." He left before Daniel could argue. Outside, the night air felt sharper, biting. Harold's breath fogged out in front of him as he walked to his car. He opened the door, but before he could get in, someone spoke from the shadows. "You're moving fast for a fossil." Harold didn't jump. He never jumped, but he turned quickly. Sergeant Colin Dwyer stepped out from behind a tree, hands in his pockets, posture loose but eyes hard. He'd been listening, tracking, waiting. "Evening, Sergeant," Harold said. "You make a habit of lurking outside people's homes?" Dwyer smirked. "Only when a washed-up detective starts stirring things he shouldn't." Harold's jaw tightened. "Lily Armitage. Where were you the day she vanished?" Dwyer tilted his head. "Funny, you ask that like you owe me an answer." "You do. You were one of the last adults she trusted." Dwyer's smile faded. "You're barking up the wrong tree, old man." "Then tell me where you were." Dwyer stepped closer. "Why don't you worry about something else, like your job? I hear retirement homes are taking sign-ups." "And I hear guilty men get nervous when questioned," Harold shot back. A beat of silence cracked between them. Dwyer's eyes flicked toward the house. "The Armitages called me earlier, told me you were sniffing around. I came to make sure you weren't feeding them any nonsense." "I'm feeding them hope, something they didn't have before I showed up." Dwyer's jaw clenched. "You don't want to push this," he warned. "There are people above your pay grade who don't want certain rocks overturned." Harold stared at him, unimpressed. "Good thing I stopped caring about pay grades 30 years ago." Dwyer took another step. His voice dropped. "Walk away from this case." Harold didn't blink. "No." A muscle in Dwyer's cheek twitched. He stepped back into the dark. "You won't like where this leads, Quinn." Then he vanished behind the trees, footsteps silent. Harold got inside his car, heart pounding harder than he wanted to admit. He was too old for threats, too old for intimidation, but not too old for the truth. And Dwyer had just confirmed something important. This case wasn't about a missing girl anymore. It was about power, corruption, and control. And the people who wanted Harold off the case weren't afraid of him. They were afraid of what he was about to uncover.
Harold didn't drive straight to the precinct. Instead, he pulled into the empty lot behind O'Malley's Diner, a place where cops once shared information off the record, back when justice meant something and not just PR statements and election season promises. He sat in his car for a long moment, letting the engine tick itself quiet. His conversation with Dwyer replayed in his mind like a corrupted tape. Walk away. There are people who don't want you turning over certain rocks. Harold had been a cop long enough to know that threats weren't warnings, they were admissions. Someone was scared. Someone with enough power to send Dwyer to stalk him outside the Armitage house. Harold pulled out his old flip phone. Yes, flip phone. The younger detectives mocked him for it. But it never overheated, never died in 2 hours, and most importantly, no one could remotely wipe it without physically touching it. He dialed the only person left inside the department he trusted. A raspy voice answered. "Quinn, you alive?" Harold cracked a tiny smile. "Barely, Benny." Benny Ortega, a retired CSU analyst who came back part-time to make ends meet. If the department was a sinking ship, Benny was the barnacle stubbornly clinging to the hull. "What's wrong?" Benny asked. He always skipped pleasantries. "Your voice sounds like someone stepped on your grave." Harold didn't waste breath. "I need you to pull everything on Sergeant Colin Dwyer. Service records, commendations, reprimands, overtime logs, off-duty reports, and I needed quiet." Benny whistled low. "You're taking swings at that tree? Bold, old man. Dwyer's my friends." "I noticed. You want to tell me why?" "Not yet." Benny grunted. "Fine, but you owe me a bottle of that bourbon you hide behind your cereal boxes." "You found that on accident," Harold said. Benny snorted. "You left the cabinet door open. You're 62. Stop pretending you can see straight at dawn." "Just get me what you can," Harold said more softly. "Give me a few hours." Harold hung up, leaned back, and exhaled. His chest felt tight, not with fear, but with urgency. A child was out there, running out of time, and the clock didn't care about politics. After a few minutes, Harold stepped out of the car and walked into the diner. The bell above the door jingled. The waitress, an older woman named Lorraine, waved him toward his usual booth. "You're late," she said, pouring coffee before he even sat. "I was starting to think the Grim Reaper got tired of waiting and came early." "Evening to you too," Harold muttered. She slid a plate of toast toward him. "Eat. You look like someone wrung you out and hung you to dry." He wasn't hungry, but he needed an anchor, some small reminder of normalcy. He took a bite. Lorraine leaned on the counter, watching him with sharp eyes. "You got that missing girl case, don't you?" He froze. "How'd you know?" She shrugged. "City's buzzing, and you only look that haunted when a kid's involved." Harold couldn't deny that. "Everyone's praying you find her. You're the only one left who gives a damn." Her words hit him harder than he expected, because they were true, and because the department treated him like a relic instead of the only cop who still remembered what a promise meant. Before Harold could respond, his phone vibrated. "Benny." He answered immediately. "Talk to me." "I've got your files," Benny said. "And Quinn, you were right to look into him." Harold stiffened. "Go on." "Dwyer's internal record is spotless. Too spotless. There's not a single blemish in 15 years. That's impossible for a cop in narcotics." "Means someone's cleaning up behind him," Harold muttered. "That's not all," Benny said. "I checked his overtime logs. He's been clocking hours that don't match GPS pings on his cruiser." Harold's pulse kicked. "Where was he?" 3 neighborhoods. None of them in his patrol sector. One of them just happens to be West Pine Estates, the same neighborhood Lily vanished from. Harold's grip tightened on the phone. "Who signed off on his logs?" Silence. "Benny." "Captain Lawson." Harold shut his eyes. Of course. Captain Lawson. The same man who'd spent the last month cornering me about retirement, the same man who gave Dwyer preferential treatment, the same man who bragged openly about wanting old blood flushed from the system. "Quinn," Benny said quietly, "you need to be careful. This isn't just a bad egg. We're talking a rotten nest." Harold opened his eyes. "I'm already in it. Can't back out now." He ended the call. Then his phone buzzed again, this time a text from an unknown number, a photo attachment. He opened it. A grainy image filled the screen, clearly taken from a distance, zoomed in. It showed him leaving the Armitage house earlier that night, followed by a second message. "Stay out of this, old man.
or the next time the picture won't be of you walking." Harold's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. They were watching him, tracking him, trying to scare him off. They still underestimated him. He pocketed the phone, finished his coffee, and left cash on the table. Lorraine called after him, "Harold, you be careful. You look like a man about to do something stupid." He paused. Not stupid, necessary. Outside, the air was colder, the streets quieter, but Harold's mind was sharper than it had been in years. He drove back toward the station, a plan forming. The precinct was a machine at night. Doors clicking open, printers humming, officers moving in clusters, laughing too loudly. The younger ones ignored Harold, as usual. He didn't bother acknowledging them. He walked straight to the evidence room, flashed his badge to the clerk, and requested Lily's belongings. The clerk blinked at him, but those were already logged for CSU. "I need temporary access, now." "Detective Quinn, I'm not sure you have clearance." Harold leaned in, voice low and deadly calm. "Son, I was in this department before you learned long division. Give me the box." The clerk practically tripped over himself retrieving it. Harold took the small plastic container and headed to an empty interview room. He set the box down, flipped the latch, and spread out Lily's items. A tiny backpack, a shoelace, a plastic barrette shaped like a sunflower, a bracelet made of cheap translucent beads. Harold stared at them like they were scripture. He touched the bracelet, one bead missing. He looked closer. There was a faint smudge near the clasp, something dark, something ignored. He pulled out his pocket magnifier. It wasn't dirt, it wasn't mud, it was grease, industrial grease, thick, black, resistant. He'd seen it before, but not in residential streets. Engine shops, salvage yards, old storage facilities where generators and machines were kept running on skeleton crews. Then it clicked. There was an old utility depot 2 miles from the Armitage home, shut down 5 years ago due to budget cuts. Abandoned on paper, not abandoned in practice. Someone had been using it. His heart slammed hard against his ribs. He grabbed the bracelet, stuffed it into his coat, and rushed toward the exit. But just as he reached the door, Captain Lawson stepped out of his office, blocking his path. "Quinn," Lawson said dryly, "burning the midnight oil?" "I'm just following a lead." "Funny, I don't remember giving you authorization for late-night solo investigations." "I didn't ask." Lawson stepped closer, voice dropping. "You're making waves. Dangerous ones." Harold met his gaze without blinking. "Good, means I'm close." Lawson's smile was thin and cold. "Turn in your badge. I'll file your suspension paperwork in the morning." Harold felt the words like a punch, but not the kind that could knock him out. He reached into his coat. Lawson tensed, but Harold pulled out nothing but his car keys. "No, you don't get to take my badge, not tonight." Lawson's eyes hardened. "You're done, Quinn. Not until I find her." Harold pushed past him. Lawson grabbed his arm. Harold whipped around, eyes blazing. "Touch me again, and you'll need a new wrist." Lawson froze. Harold walked out of the station. He didn't have time for bureaucracy. Didn't have time for fear. Lily was out there, and he had just found her first real clue.
Rain began to drizzle as Harold pulled away from the precinct, the streetlights stretching into hazy gold streaks across his windshield. He drove with both hands gripping the wheel, knuckles white, mind racing so fast it barely kept up with itself. The abandoned utility depot, grease on the bracelet, Dwyer's patrol logs, Lawson's sudden push to suspend him. Every piece was snapping together into a picture that turned his stomach. Someone wasn't just impeding the investigation. Someone in his own department was involved. A child doesn't vanish cleanly. Someone sees something. Someone hears something. Someone makes a mistake. But when a department closes ranks this aggressively, this early, it's not an accident. It's a cover. Harold wasn't scared for himself anymore. Fear had left him miles ago. Now he felt something colder, sharper, more consuming. Righteous anger. He stopped at a red light that flickered from faulty wiring. Thunder rolled overhead. His phone vibrated in his jacket pocket. He pulled it out. A text from Benny. "Got more. Call me. Urgent." Harold dialed. Benny answered on the first ring, out of breath.
I found something worse. Breathe and talk, Harold said. I dug into the old depot records. Someone has been signing off on maintenance checks every quarter for the past 4 years, even though the building's marked condemned. Harold's pulse kicked. Who? Benny hesitated. Quinn. It's signed by Dwyer. That was bad enough. But then Benny added, voice dropping to a whisper. Countersigned by Captain Lawson. Harold shut his eyes. There it was. Proof. Not speculation, not instinct, not hints or suspicions. Proof. Harold, Benny said quietly, you can't go there alone. Then come with me. You know I can't. I don't have field clearance anymore. I'm not armed. Harold's voice softened. I know. Stay where you are. And Benny, thank you. Before Benny could respond, Harold hung up. The light turned green. Harold turned toward West Pine Road, toward the dark industrial outskirts of the city where the depot sat like a forgotten skeleton. By the time he reached the perimeter fence, rain had become a steady sheet. The depot loomed through the downpour, 3 rusting buildings, 2 collapsed sheds, and a long warehouse with boarded windows. The kind of place you could scream all night and no one would hear you. Harold parked far from the entrance, grabbed his flashlight and notebook, and approached on foot. The chain-link fence had a gap beneath it wide enough for one person to crawl through. Someone had used this recently. Inside the yard, mud sucked at his shoes. Broken machinery lay half-drowned in puddles. The air smelled of wet metal and oil. He moved slowly, senses sharpened. After 30 years on the job, his body reacted before his brain did, weight centered, step silent, flashlight low instead of high, so the beam wouldn't give away his position. He approached the main warehouse. Its doors sat slightly ajar. His heart tightened. He reached for his holster. Empty. He had turned in his gun earlier for routine cleaning, something Lawson had insisted on before close of business. Of course. He still had his pocket knife and a heavy-duty metal flashlight. If it came down to it, he'd fight with whatever he had. He'd fought with less in his youth. Harold pushed the warehouse door open. It groaned. The interior was dim, lit only by a flickering bulb somewhere far ahead. Rows of old generators, gas canisters, rolls of industrial cable. He moved down the center aisle, listening. A scuff. To his right. He swung the flashlight. Nothing. Another sound, faint, muffled. A whimper. His blood froze. A child's whimper. Lily? He whispered. It came again. To his left now, behind a stack of rusted metal crates. He moved, stepping over debris, heart thundering. When he reached the crates, he saw it. A small shoe. Then a tiny leg. Then Lily Armitage. Wrapped in a dirty blanket, cheeks streaked with tears, hands trembling. Her eyes widened with recognition, the terrified kind children get when they see a grown-up and don't know if they can trust them. Harold dropped to his knees. Lily, he whispered, breaking with relief. Sweetheart, I'm here. I'm here. She didn't speak. She simply stared. Harold slowly extended his hand. It's okay. You're safe now. I'm going to take you home. She reached hesitantly toward him, and a voice behind him said, Don't move. Harold stiffened. He knew that voice. He turned slowly. Sergeant Dwyer stood 10 feet away, gun raised, rain dripping from his jacket. Well, well, Dwyer said. Should have retired when we told you to. Harold rose halfway, shielding Lily with his body. What did you do, Dwyer? Dwyer shrugged. Relax. She's alive, isn't she? All we needed was leverage. For what? For the election, for the budget increase, for the narrative. Dwyer smirked. You know how it works. The city votes with its emotions. A missing girl, then found by our heroic department? That's a public relations goldmine. Harold felt cold. You staged her disappearance? You did this? Dwyer grinned. Lawson's idea, actually. We hide her for 48 hours, discover her tied up somewhere dramatic, and boom, we're heroes. Department gets new funding, everyone wins. Harold's voice shook with fury. She's a child, not a pawn. Dwyer raised the gun higher. That sentiment is why you're being forced out. You're old, Quinn. You actually care. Harold stepped forward. Let her go. Dwyer cocked the gun. Move again, and I'll put a bullet in you. They'll find the girl alive and you dead. Tragic old-timer who pushed too hard. Clean narrative. Harold didn't blink. He had been in standoffs before, dozens. He knew when a man was bluffing and when he wasn't. Dwyer wasn't bluffing, but Harold wasn't afraid. Behind him, Lily whimpered again. He felt her tiny fingers clutch the back of his coat. He couldn't die here, not while she needed him. Harold lifted both hands slowly. All right, take me. Leave her. Dwyer laughed. Nice try. Lightning flashed outside. For half a second, the warehouse lit up like daylight. In that half-second, Harold saw a shadow move behind Dwyer. Someone else was here. Before he could speak, the shadow lunged. Dwyer whipped around too late. A metal pipe slammed into his wrist. The gun clattered to the floor. Dwyer yelled in pain. The shadow stepped forward into the dim light. Benny Ortega. Breathing hard, soaked from the rain, gripping the pipe like he'd fought wars with it. Sorry, you said stay put. I didn't listen. Dwyer swung wildly at him, but Benny ducked. Harold rushed forward, tackling Dwyer to the concrete. The two men struggled, Dwyer punching hard, fueled by rage, Harold pushing back, fueled by 30 years of duty, and one terrified little girl behind him. Dwyer reached for the dropped gun. Harold slammed his hand onto the concrete. The crack of bone echoed. Dwyer screamed. Benny kicked the gun away. Harold pressed his knee into Dwyer's chest, pinning him. It's over. Dwyer spat blood at him. You have no idea who you're messing with. Harold leaned close, eyes blazing. Yes, I do. Sirens suddenly wailed outside. Not police sirens, federal ones. Blue and white. 3 SUVs screeched to a stop outside the depot. Doors flew open. Agents stormed in, shouting commands, guns raised. Benny threw up his hands. Harold stayed frozen. 2 agents pulled Dwyer off the ground and cuffed him while he screamed curses. Another agent reached for Lily gently. Are you hurt? He asked softly. Lily cried harder, clinging to Harold. It's okay, Harold whispered, lifting her into his arms. An agent approached Harold. Detective Quinn? Harold nodded. We've been tracking Dwyer and Lawson for months. You just gave us the evidence we needed. Harold felt his knees weaken, but he didn't fall. Lily tightened her arms around his neck, sobbing into his shoulder. He held her close. She was safe. She was alive. And this case was far from over.
The precinct felt different the next morning. Quieter, tighter, as though every conversation had been stuffed with cotton and shoved behind locked doors. Word of the warehouse raid had spread fast, even faster than the usual gossip chain. But instead of admiration, instead of backslaps or grudging respect, Detective Frank Mallory walked into a pressure cooker. Eyes slid away the moment he looked at them. Voices dropped into whispers when he passed. 2 younger officers he didn't even recognize suddenly found reasons to turn down hallways he wasn't walking down. It didn't bother him,
Not really. He'd stopped needing friends in this building years ago. But the temperature was unmistakable. Someone wanted him isolated. And he had a very good idea who. He found Captain Briggs in his office, blinds half closed, suit jacket draped over his chair, tie loose like he'd been up all night. Maybe he had. Maybe plotting takes effort. Maybe fear steals sleep. Briggs didn't look up when Mallory stepped inside. "You're supposed to knock," Briggs said flatly. "I did." "No, you didn't." Mallory closed the door behind him. "You wanted to see me?" Briggs finally looked up, his expression a perfect mix of irritation and forced authority. "You disobeyed a direct order, Mallory." "I followed the evidence," Mallory corrected. Briggs slammed his hand on the desk. "You followed nothing. You acted outside protocol, outside your chain of command, and you put several officers in danger." "Funny," Mallory said dryly, "because I was the only one in that warehouse doing any police work." Briggs exhaled sharply. "You're done. Internal Affairs is opening an investigation. Effective immediately, you're placed on administrative leave." There it was, the retaliation, the inevitability. Mallory didn't flinch. "For finding the girl?" Briggs froze a fraction of a second too long. And that told Mallory everything. He leaned forward. "Where's Simone now?" "She's safe. That's all you need to know." "You're hiding her," Mallory said quietly. "Why?" Briggs' jaw tightened. "Get out of my office." "Captain, get out!" Mallory held Briggs' eyes for a beat longer. Briggs looked away first. The hallway outside the office felt colder. He wasn't surprised to see the two IA officers waiting near the bullpen, Agent Dorsey and Agent Malik. Both wore suits too crisp for normal cops, and both looked at him with the smug neutrality of men who enjoy paperwork that ruins careers. "Detective Mallory," Dorsey said, "we need to speak with you." Mallory sighed. "Is this the part where you take my gun and badge?" Malik smiled faintly. "If you could make this easier, we'd appreciate it." Mallory reached for his badge, unclipped it, and placed it gently into Malik's hand. It felt heavier than it should. His gun followed, a weight he'd carried for nearly 40 decades. "Thank you," Dorsey said. "We'll escort you out." "Escort," Mallory raised a brow. "Am I a threat now?" "You tell us," Malik said coolly. Mallory didn't argue. He walked. Every officer in the bullpen looked up, then quickly pretended to be doing something else. Phones were suddenly the most interesting objects on Earth. Paperwork became riveting. Not one person spoke. Not until he was almost to the doors. Detective Hernandez, usually loud, brash, unfiltered, called after him. "For what it's worth, Mallory, you did the right thing." Briggs heard it. The glare he shot her could have melted steel. Mallory just nodded and pushed through the doors.
Outside, the winter air slapped him across the face. Administrative leave, IA investigation. They were going for his career and maybe his freedom because he'd pulled a girl out of a warehouse and found the thread of something bigger. He sat in his car, hands on the steering wheel, but didn't start it. Instead, he replayed everything. Simone's whispered words in the car, the bag of cash, the burner phone, the names, the pain in her voice when she said, "They knew I was coming. Someone tipped them off." Someone inside the department. Someone with power. Someone like Briggs. Mallory leaned back in his seat. He'd spent years ignoring the politics, the alliances, the favors. He'd spent years being dismissed, mocked, pushed aside. Maybe that had insulated him, made him too unimportant to notice, too old to be a threat. Until now. He pulled out his personal phone. "Mallory?" Emily's voice filled the car, bright and warm and concerned. "Dad, you okay? I need to talk to you." She hesitated. "This about the case?" I inhaled slowly. "Yeah. Come over. I'll make coffee. And, Dad?" "Yeah?" "I heard about the girl. You did something good." I closed my eyes. I hope so. Emily lived in a small apartment above her bakery, warm, homey, buzzing with the smells of cooling pastries. She opened the door before I even knocked. "You look exhausted," she said. Mallory chuckled. "I feel worse." She hugged me, and I let myself melt into it for a second. His daughter was one of the few places in the world where he didn't have to be tough. Inside, she set coffee in front of me. "Okay, tell me everything." He did, not in the clipped, sanitized way he told other officers, but the truth, the fear, the suspicion, the way Briggs' voice shook, the IA ambush, the names Simone mentioned. When he finished, Emily's brows were knit so tightly they nearly touched. "Dad, this is corruption." "Yeah. And not small corruption." "No." "So, what are you gonna do?" Mallory took a long sip of coffee. His hands didn't tremble, but his heart did. "I'm not sure yet." "Bullshit," Emily said. "You always know." He smiled faintly. "Maybe." "Dad." She leaned forward. "If there are dirty cops involved, Simone isn't safe." He nodded. "And neither are you." He nodded again. "Then you can't stop." His eyes lifted. "Emily." "No. Listen." She grabbed his hands. "The department wants you quiet. You're the last person who should be quiet." I exhaled slowly. "They took my badge." "Oh, please. Like that ever stopped you from doing anything." Mallory laughed. It was small, tired, but real. "I'll be careful." "You better be." When he left her apartment, night had fallen. Streetlights flickered on, one by one. Mallory didn't go home. Instead, he drove to the last place anyone would expect him to be, Simone Carter's apartment complex. Police tape still fluttered in the wind. A patrol car sat nearby, officer inside scrolling through his phone. Good. Distracted. Mallory slipped around the back, moving with more stealth than a man his age should have been capable of. He found Simone's building, climbed the stairwell to her unit, and picked the back lock with the muscle memory of someone who'd learned the skill decades earlier. The moment the door clicked open, Mallory felt it. Wrongness. A smell. Metallic. Sharp. Blood. He flicked on his flashlight. The living room was trashed, furniture overturned, drawers yanked open, walls smeared with something dark. And in the center of the floor, Mallory's breath froze. A message, painted sloppily in red. "Stop digging, old man." He crouched, touched the paint. Still tacky. They weren't just threatening him. They were taunting him. Footsteps sounded in the hallway. Mallory spun, gunless, but ready, flashlight raised. A silhouette moved past the frosted glass window of the front door. Slow. Deliberate. Then a low voice carried through the wood. "We told you to retire, Mallory. And now, you're out of time." His pulse hammered. "And now," the voice continued, "you're out of time." The game had changed. The stakes had sharpened. And Detective Frank Mallory, 62 years old, mocked, dismissed, pushed aside, felt something inside him click into place.
They wanted war? Fine. I'd give them hell.
The footsteps outside Simone's wrecked apartment paused, long enough for Mallory to recognize that whoever stood on the other side of the door wasn't some random grunt. The patience, the posture, the deliberate silence. This was someone who wasn't afraid of being seen, someone who believed the threat alone would do the job. But they didn't come in, didn't kick down the door, didn't finish the job they'd started. Instead, the silhouette shifted, then walked away. Mallory waited, muscles coiled tight, breath measured. He counted 15 seconds, 30, a full minute. When he peeked out the window of Simone's kitchen, the hallway was empty. But the message was clear. We see you. We know exactly where you are, and this time, we're not hiding. He stepped back into the crime scene, Simone's destroyed apartment, and took it all in again. The overturned couch, the smashed lamp, the blood-smeared warning. They'd done this recently, recklessly, sloppily. The arrogance was remarkable. That arrogance meant someone felt protected. Someone high up. Someone like Captain Briggs. Mallory pulled out his phone and snapped photos of everything. The blood writing, the footprints smeared in the carpet, the torn drawer handles. He didn't have official access anymore, but that didn't matter. Truth didn't require a badge. He stepped back into the hallway and immediately heard rustling in the shadows. A soft whimper, a quick shuffle. He spun, flashlight up again. Who's there? The movement froze. Mallory took a step forward, lowering the flashlight beam just enough to soften his tone. You can come out. I'm not here to hurt you. A figure emerged from behind the concrete support beam. A teenager, maybe 16, in an oversized hoodie, face half hidden under the hood. He looked scared, not of Mallory, but of everything. You're the detective, right? The old one? Mallory blinked. That's me. The kid nodded nervously. I know what they did. The cops. They took Simone. Mallory's world narrowed. You saw them? The teen swallowed hard. Yeah, I lived 2 floors down. I heard screaming. Not like scared screaming, angry screaming. Like she was fighting back. 2 guys dragged her out. I recognized one. Mallory stepped closer, gentle. Who? The kid hesitated, glancing toward the stairwell like someone might overhear. Detective Marlowe. The confirmation hit like a punch. You're sure? Yeah, everyone around here knows his face. He's always messing with people. He was with another guy, big, shaved head. I think he's a cop too. Lock. It fit too well. Mallory crouched to eye level. Why come to me? The kid looked down. Because Simone helped people. And you saved her the first time. Everyone's saying they're trying to shut you up. I know how that works around here. Mallory placed a hand on the kid's shoulder. You did the right thing. The kid nodded, then slipped away down the stairs. Mallory pulled out his phone. Photos of the apartment weren't enough anymore. Witness testimony, even unofficial, was gold. But if Simone had been taken out of her apartment by cops, there had to be cameras. This wasn't a rich neighborhood. Only the landlord's broken cameras usually watch these hallways. But there was one place in the building that always had recordings. The stairwell. Specifically, the stairwell landing of the 2nd floor. Mallory had been in this building dozens of times over the years. He knew the corners of it better than some officers knew the streets they patrolled. He jogged down to the 2nd floor landing and found the small metal-grated camera mounted high on the wall. The little red light wasn't blinking the way it should. Someone had disabled it. But not completely. Mallory leaned closer. They'd cut the power, but they hadn't taken the memory card. sloppy, rushed, desperate. He pulled out his pocket knife, popped the casing, and carefully slid the SD card into his pocket. He wasn't going home. Not tonight. Not when Simone was missing and dirty cops had just threatened to kill him. He needed someone he could trust with the footage, someone outside the department, someone who wouldn't be intimidated or bribed. There was only one person. Emily wasn't asleep when Mallory returned to her apartment. She opened the door with wide, scared eyes the moment she heard his footsteps. "Dad, what happened? You're pale." "I need your laptop." That's not reassuring. He sat at her kitchen table, pulled out the SD card, and slid it into the slot. Emily watched him like he might suddenly collapse. "Dad, what's going on?" He didn't answer until the computer dinged and the folder popped open. There were files, video, audio. He clicked the most recent timestamp. The footage was grainy, but clear enough. Simone's door bursting open, 2 men dragging her out, her kicking, screaming, fighting like hell, the struggle spilling into the stairwell, her voice yelling, "Let me go! Frank Mallory knows!" Then a punch, then silence, then her limp body hauled down the stairs. Emily's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God! Is that—" "Yes," Mallory said quietly. "Marlowe and Locke." The video was damning. It didn't just implicate the 2 detectives. It revealed the extent of the cover-up. Simone had been taken because she knew too much. The money, the names, the network. Suddenly, everything Mallory had suspected about Briggs wasn't just theory. It was a blueprint for corruption woven through the precinct like rot. Emily looked at him with terror. "Dad, you can't go back to the department with this." "I'm not," Mallory said. "Not yet? Then what are you going to do?" He closed the laptop, decision settling in his bones like armor. "I'm going to force their hand." Emily grabbed his wrist. "Dad, please, they threatened you. They trashed her apartment. They're watching you. If you confront them, they might kill you." Mallory met his eyes, gentle but unshakable. "If I don't confront them, more girls will go missing. That's the choice." She shook her head, tears rising. "I can't lose you too." He pulled her into a hug, tight, secure, more father than cop. "You won't." "You don't know that." "I do," he said, voice steady. "Because I'm not walking into this blind." He stepped back and grabbed his coat. Emily wiped her eyes. "Where are you going?" "To the only place those bastards fear more than exposure." Emily stared. "City Hall?" "No." He paused, turning toward the door with a hard, razor-edged calm. "The press." The city newspaper's headquarters was a squat concrete building tucked between warehouses and cheap offices. Mallory wasn't dressed for interviews. He looked worn, tired, bruised by stress and age. But when he stepped inside, the receptionist's eyes widened with recognition. "Detective Mallory? I need to speak to investigative reporter Jonah Harker now." The woman hesitated only a moment before nodding and picking up the phone. Within minutes, Jonah Harker appeared, a man in his late 30s, rumpled shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbows, pen tucked behind his ear. He studied Mallory like he'd just walked in carrying a body. "Detective, to what do I owe this very unexpected pleasure?" Mallory met his gaze. "I'm here because my department is corrupted. Because a girl I rescued was kidnapped by cops, and I have proof." He blinked, then gestured sharply. "My office, now." Inside, Mallory plugged in the SD card and pressed play. Harker watched the footage without speaking. When it ended, he leaned back slowly, eyes sharp, jaw clenched. "This," he said,
voice low. "We'll blow up the entire precinct." Mallory nodded. "That's the idea." Harker stared at him. "They're going to come after you. They already have." Harker hesitated. "If we run this, there's no going back." Mallory exhaled. "That's the point." Harker nodded once, stood, locked his office door, and then he said the words Mallory had been waiting for. "Let's burn them all down." By the time Mallory left the building, dawn was breaking. The city was awakening, and for the first time in decades, Frank Mallory felt fully alive. He didn't have a badge, didn't have departmental backup, didn't have political protection, but he had
And truth was a weapon far sharper than any he'd carried on duty. The war wasn't coming. It had already begun. The morning the story dropped, the entire city woke in shock. Not from the headline, but from the name attached to it. Detectives Marlowe and Locke caught on video kidnapping Midtown woman. Source, retired detective Frank Mallory. Below it, still frames from the stairwell footage glared like open wounds. Simone being dragged, Simone fighting, Simone silenced. And there, in black and white, were the faces of the department's untouchables. Mallory sat in Emily's living room at dawn, coffee going cold in his hands as the TV replayed the story again and again. The reporter's voice echoed. According to whistleblower Frank Mallory, who served the department for 34 years, the kidnapping is part of a larger corruption scheme implicating multiple officers, including Captain Ron Briggs. Emily stood behind him, hands on his shoulders, barely breathing. "Dad, oh my God!" Mallory didn't blink, didn't flinch, didn't smile. He just said, "This is only the first domino." Then the city exploded. By 7:15 a.m., protesters crowded the police station steps. Parents, students, teachers, elderly neighbors Mallory had helped decades ago, store owners, activists, people who once felt invisible. They held signs, "Justice for Simone," "End the cover-up," "Mallory told the truth," "Fire Briggs now," "Policing is not a private business." Reporters swarmed in waves, microphones, cameras, drones buzzing like mechanical insects. Mallory stayed hidden for as long as he could, but eventually, his phone buzzed. It was Jonah Harker. "You need to get down here," the reporter said. "They want you." "Who?" "Everyone." Mallory wasn't a man who craved the spotlight. He'd never once spoken at a rally, never stood behind a podium. But he had led men into gunfights. He had walked into burning buildings. He had stared down killers. Facing a crowd wasn't fear. It was responsibility. By the time he and Emily arrived at the precinct steps, the crowd parted like a wave. People whispered his name. Hands reached out to touch him. Phones rose to record him. Mallory felt the weight of it. 34 years of work. 34 years dismissed, mocked, minimized. And here he was, finally being heard. A bullhorn was pressed into his hand. He didn't raise it. He didn't need it. When he stepped onto the steps, the crowd quieted. He spoke with his natural voice, steady, worn, unmistakably human. "You all know why I'm here. The truth's out. But the truth isn't just a headline. It's a wound, and wounds don't heal by hiding them." The crowd leaned in. For years, some officers in this precinct abused their power. They targeted neighborhoods that couldn't fight back. They treated poor families like suspects. They sold cases,
They sold justice. He looked up at the building he'd worked in for 3 decades. And the people in charge let it happen, because it made their numbers look good. A murmur rolled through the crowd. Mallory went on. Simone is missing because she trusted the wrong people. People wearing the same uniform I wore for most of my life. She tried to do the right thing. She was punished for it. He paused. If you're looking for me to apologize for exposing them, don't. I'm too old for that, and I've watched too much harm go unpunished. A woman shouted, "We believe you, Frank!" Mallory nodded faintly. I didn't come forward because I'm brave. I came forward because no one else did. A hush fell. And I'll keep fighting until that girl is found. The crowd erupted, cheering, chanting, roaring Mallory's name in a way he'd never imagined hearing it. Emily wiped a tear. Jonah Harker shouted from behind the cameras, "Frank, what's next?" Mallory answered without hesitation, "We expose the rest."
Inside the precinct, Captain Briggs watched the broadcast with a face flushed red. He slammed his fist on the desk so hard the stapler flew off. "This senile fossil is ruining everything!" Detective Locke paced like a caged animal. "Why ain't he scared? We trashed that apartment! We made our warning clear!" "Mallory's a dead man walking," Briggs growled. "He just doesn't know it yet." Detective Marlowe leaned in the doorway, arms crossed. Department's panicking. The mayor called. Internal affairs is swarming. Briggs glared at them both. "We stay calm, we say nothing, and we wait for the storm to pass." Marlowe snorted. "Storm ain't passing, Captain. It's moving in." Briggs turned on him. "You got something to say?" "Yeah," Marlowe spat. "He's got video, Ron. Video. We're caught. The best thing you could do is—" The door burst open. 3 men in suits stepped in. Badges flashed. "Captain Briggs, you're being placed on administrative leave pending investigation into misconduct, obstruction, and conspiracy." Briggs froze. Locke swore. Marlowe backed away. "You can't do this," Briggs barked, struggling against the officers grabbing him. "You don't have the authority!" But they did. And within seconds, Briggs was dragged out the door under the roar of protesters chanting Mallory's name. Mallory watched Briggs being escorted out from across the street. He felt no triumph, no vindication, only necessity. Jonah Harker stood beside him. "Your move worked?" Mallory nodded once. It was never a game. Emily squeezed her father's arm. "Dad, Simone, what if she's—" He placed a steady hand on hers. "We're not done yet." As if summoned by fate, Mallory's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. "This is Mallory." A shaking voice whispered, "Detective, it's me. Simone." Mallory's heart stopped. "Where are you?" "They dumped me behind an old factory by the river. I think I'm near the storage docks. I think I'm near the storage docks." She was crying. "I didn't think anyone was coming." Mallory's voice softened but stayed firm. "Listen to me. I'm coming right now. Stay hidden. Stay quiet." "I'm hurt," she whispered. "Please hurry." "I will," Mallory said. "You hold on." He hung up and turned to Emily. "Get in the car." She didn't question him, didn't hesitate, didn't fear. She moved with him like she'd waited her whole life for her father to take the lead. Mallory pulled out his phone, dialed Harker. "Send police units to the river docks now. Simone is alive." Harker didn't hesitate. "On it."
Then Mallory stepped into the driver's seat, not as a man too old for the job, not as the relic they mocked, but as Detective Frank Mallory, the only one who had never stopped chasing the truth. They found Simone huddled behind a metal crate, bruised, trembling, but alive. When she saw Mallory, she broke into tears. "I knew you'd come," she whispered. He crouched, lifting her gently. "No one gets left behind," he said softly. The ambulance arrived. Reporters arrived. Protesters arrived. Officers who still believed in justice arrived. Mallory didn't step back into the shadows. He stood under the rising sun, Simone's hand in his, Emily beside him, corruption falling behind him like ash. For the first time, the city saw not an old man, but the detective he had always been. And as Simone was placed into the ambulance, she looked at him one last time. "Frank?" "Yes." "Are you done now?" He shook his head slowly. "No. We're just getting started." And with that, the case no one else could solve became the fire that burned the whole rotten system clean. Frank Mallory didn't retire. He rose. A legend built not from glory, but from truth.